All right, so we're starting the second parak of Taanis today, DAF Tesvav Amud Aleph. Seder Ta'anios Ketzad. What is the order of fasting? You know, we learned from the previous parak that there is a progressive institution of fasting depending upon how far we are into the season and there's been no rain. So the Mishnahs previously had described that there are three sort of stages. The first stage is we institute a 3-day fast, Monday, Thursday, Monday. Then there's going to be a second stage of fasting, further into the season when there continues to be no rain. And then finally, the most desperate state will be towards the end of the rainy season. There's still no rain. There'll be seven series of 7, starting with Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, Monday. Okay. But in any event, so the Gemara now says, Seder Ta'anios Ketzad. Let's look at what's done during these fast days. Motziin es hateva l'rechova shel ir. We take out the Aron Kodesh out into the city street. V'nostin efer makla al gabi hateva. We take ash. And Rashi is careful to point out to us that the word efer sometimes means earth and sometimes means ash. Here it clearly means ash, which is why the word makla is used to describe ash from an oven. Uvarosh hanasi uvarosh av beistin, and we take this ash and we place it on the head of the nasi, the president of the people, and the head of the beistin of the people. V'chol echad ve'echad nosein barosho, and then every person proceeds to put the ash on his own head. Hazaken shebhen omer lifneim divrei kavushin. Then one of the elders stands up and he says words of inspiration, words that will inspire people to tshuva. He says, Achenu. Lo ne'emar ba'anshe ninve vayar elokim es sakam ve'es Taanisam ela vayar elokim es ma'asehim ki shavu midarkam hara'a. He says, brethren, it doesn't say by the people of Nineveh that God saw their sackcloth and their fasting, but rather God saw their deeds, that they had done tshuva and they repented from their evil ways. So therefore, even though we're fasting and wearing sackcloth today, understand that that's only the superficial part of it. The main part is to be a better person, to return to Hashem. Uve Kabbalahu Omer, and that's the narrative of the Navi. The Navi himself says in Yeshaya, V'kiru levavchem ve'al bigdeichem, that tear your hearts, don't just tear your clothes. Okay, so then the Mishnah continues and it says, Amdu batfila, and at that point they begin the prayer service. Moridin lifnei hateva zakein v'ragil v'yesh labanim uveso rekam, that they bring a person to lead the davening who's mature, and that's what it means by zakein, is that he's got to be mature. The poskim says he's got to be over 30 years old. Ragil means that the words are well versed in his mouth so that he'll say them without any difficulty. He has children. His house is empty. So he's got dependents. He doesn't have with what to feed them. And we'll see, Beis Orekam also means that something else that the Gemara will make reference to as well later on, that his body is pure. We want to make sure that his heart will be pure and focused on the prayers. Right? There's nothing to make a person's mind focused on the prayers more than having children and not being able to pay for their clothes. Right? Or tuition, exactly.
It's a little like what we have with Yom Kippur.
Yes, all of these are brought down as qualifications for Shliach Tzibur, for the high holidays. V'omer lifneim esrim ve'arba brachas, and he leads the service by reciting 24 blessings of the Amidah. So where did we get 24? Yud ches shebechol yom u'mosef aleim od sheish. There are 18 of the regular standard Shmona Esrei brachos, plus on a fast day he adds 6. We don't do this anymore, but this was the normative practice. Ve'eluhein. So what are the 6 blessings? Zichronos, V'shofros. So number 1 and number 2, respectively, are the same blessings that we say on Rosh Hashanah, blessings having to do with God remembering us, and the blowing of the shofar as being a way of invoking divine mercy. Then we start off with a paragraph from Tehillim. One of the Shir Amaluses is, Kel Hashem batzarasali, Karasi vaya aneni, that I call out to God in a time of travail, and He answers me. The next bracha, bracha number 4, starts with the words from Tehillim, Avesa einai el harim, I lift up my eyes to the mountains, where will my help come from? The next bracha, number 5, starts with the words, Mimamakim karasi Hashem, from the depths I call to you, O God. And finally, another kapitel of Tehillim, bracha number 6, is Tefillah la'ani ki ya'atov. that a prayer for the poor man when he wraps himself in prayer, and v'lifnei Hashem yishpoch sicha, and pours out his words to Hashem. Reb Yehuda Omer lo hayatzarach lomer zichronos v'shofros elo omer tachtehen ra'av ki yeh ba'aretz dever ki yihiyeh. That Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with the first two. He says it's not Zichronos and Shofros as brachas 1 and 2, but rather you base it on the following two passages from the Navi. One is from Sefer Melachim, that when King Solomon dedicated the temple, he said that when there's a famine or plague in the land, the people will call out to you from the temple and you will answer to them. And the other bracha, he says, is based on the section from Yirmiyah in chapter 14, which talks about Asher hayod davar Hashem el Yirmiyahu al divrei habatzaros, that God spoke to Yirmiyahu over the situation of the famine. Okay, but in any event, we have these 6 blessings. But then it says, but those are not blessings. Those are just scriptural passages. So we have to turn them. We have to structure them as brachos. And how do you structure something as brachos? You say an end line of Baruch Atah Hashem, something that's thematically linked to the verses of Tanakh. Va'omer chosmehen. And therefore you're going to say a chasima. You'll say an end line for that, for each paragraph. So what is Al Harishona? So Rashi points out that, first of all, we have to realize that where do we insert these 6 blessings? We insert them after the bracha of Goel Yisrael, right before Rifa'enu. Thus, that's where we insert these blessings. So when the Mishnah now says Al Harishona Hu Omer, it's referring to the end part of the bracha of Goel Yisrael before we even start the 6 blessings. Because what we want to do is we want to sort of elongate the bracha of Goel Yisrael, God who's the Redeemer of Israel, to show that we are about to preface a new edition of 6 blessings. And we say, Misha Anas Avram Bahar Hamoria, Hu Ya'ane Eschem V'yishma B'kol Tza'akaschem Hayom Hazeh, Baruch Atah Hashem Goel Yisrael. So the first insertion is, he who answered Avram on Mount Moriah at the time of the Akedah, he will answer you and listen to the voice of your cries on this day. Blessed are you Hashem, who's Goel Yisrael, who redeems Israel. Now let's go into the 6 blessings. Al Hashniyahu Omer, so the next ending is going to be like this. Misha Anas Avoseinu Al Yamsuf, Hu Ya'aneh Eschem V'yishmol Kol Tza'aschem Hayom Hazeh, Baruch Atah Hashem Zocher Anishkacho. So this fits in very well to the opinion of the Tanakama, who says that what's the first bracha? Zichronos, that God remembers us. So we say, he who answered our ancestors at the Red Sea, because it says that God remembered to redeem the Jewish people in their travail in Egypt. He will listen to the sound of your cries on this day. Blessed are you Hashem, who remembers all that is forgotten. Al Hashlishis Omer, so the next bracha, which is the second of the 6, you end off by saying, Mishana es Yehoshua ba Gilgal, Hu Ya'aneh eschem v'yishma b'kol tza'akaschem hayom hazeh, Baruch Atah Hashem shomea teruah. That he who answered God, whom God answered, he who answered Yehoshua in Gilgal will answer you and listen to the sound of your cries on this day. Now, why is this associated with the second blessing of shofros? Because God answered Yehoshua by telling him to blow a shofar around the walls of Jericho, and that was what caused the walls to fall down. So you see, it's associated to the shofar, and that's why it's thematically connected. Let's go on now to the next one. He says at the end, Misha Ana Eshmul Bamitzpah, Hu Yane Eschem V'yishma B'kol Tza'akaschem Hayom Hazeh, Baruch Atah Hashem Shomei Tza'aka. Shmuel was at a time of distress. He wanted to make sure that Hashem would anoint the proper king and answer his prayers. And so therefore, that fits in with the capital of Tehillim, which was Kel Hashem Batzarasali, that I call out to God at a time of distress, at a time of travail. It was a time of great distress for Shmuel HaNavi, and Hashem answered him. So Al HaChamishis Hu Omer, on the 5th bracha, or the 5th ending, I should say, which is the 4th bracha, he says, Mishana es Eliyahu Bahar HaKarmel, Hu Ya'aneh Eschem V'yishma B'kol Tza'akaschem Hayom Hazeh, Baruch Atah Hashem Shomei Tefillah. He who answered Eliyahu on the Mount Carmel should answer you on this day. Now remember, what's that bracha? Be'esa Einai El Heharim. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. So here's God answering our prayers when we're on top of a mountain. Eliyahu's on top of Mount Carmel with the tournament with the Baal. So therefore, it's very apropos.
But isn't Shomei Tefillah part of the Shema Yisrael?
Yes, you're right. But this is an additional Shomei Tefillah. Right? This is a special Shomei Tefillah. Alashishisu omer misha anas yona b'mei hadaga hu yane eschem v'ishma b'kol tzakaschem hayom hazeh baruch ato Hashem ha'oneh be'es tzara. And on the next bracha, you say that he who answered Jonah in the belly of the whale or of the fish, he should answer you and listen to the sound of your cries in this day. Blessed are you, Hashem, who answers us at a time of travail. And this is very appropriate to the capital of Mimamakim. From the depths I called out to you, Hashem, because where was Yonah at this time? He was in the depths of the belly of the fish, right? So, and then ala shvius, and finally on the last additional ending, which is for the sixth bracha, who Omer Mishana as David ve'eshlomo beno b'Yerushalayim, hu yane eschem v'yishma b'kol tzakaschem hayom hazeh, baruch ato Hashem hamerachem al haaretz. He who answered David and Shlomo, his son in Jerusalem, shall answer your prayers on this day. Blessed are you, Hashem, who has mercy on the land of Israel. And that's very appropriate. Tefillah la'ani kiyato v'lifnei Hashem yishpoch sicho. That when a person pours out his heart in the presence of God, what is the presence of God? In the temple. So therefore, it's apropos to that capital of Tehillim. So anyway, so that's the detail of those 6 additional blessings that we say during a Taanis in the Amidah. Now the Mishnah launches into a story. Maaseh bimei Rabbi Chalafta v'Rabbi Chananya ben Trajon she'ovar echad lifnei hatema teva v'gomer es habracha kula v'lo anu acharav amen. That what happened is that there was a shliach tzibor. He said the entire blessing, and no one answered amen. Now we'll see there was a different kind of response, but it was not an amen response, and that's what we'll see was objectionable. Then somebody got up. There was sort of like the shamus or the gabbai who was in charge of making announcements, and he said, "Tiku hakohanim tiku, blow kohanim blow," meaning blow the shofar. And then they said, "Mishanas Avram Avinu ba'ar haMoriah hu yana eschem v'yishma b'kol tza'akaschem hayom hazeh." That he, and then they went to the next bracha. He who answered Avram on Mount Moriah, he shall answer you and listen to the sounds of your cries on this day. This was the ending of the bracha. And Hariu b'nei Aaron Hariu. And then they said, blow the trua, sons of Aaron, blow the trua. Mishana es avosein al yamsuf hu yana eschem v'yishma b'kol tza'akaschem hayom hazeh. And again, they followed the same theme that they repeated the ending of the blessing of that bracha. Now, this again, we're going to see that this was objectionable, and etc. etc. They did the same thing for each and every bracha. When the Chachamim heard the way that the prayers were going down in the times of Rabbi Chananya and Rabbi Chalafta, they said, "I'm sorry, but that's not the correct protocol. We only did that when it was in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, that we didn't answer Amen. But nowadays we have to answer Amen to each bracha." What did they do in the temple? The Gemara in tomorrow's DAF will detail that it was a slightly different protocol. But the point is that there's one protocol in the Beis HaMikdash, there's another protocol in the post-Churban era. Now, Shalosh Ta'anios Harishonos, so remember I told you there's 3 stages. The first stage is 3 fast days, second stage is 3 fast days, third stage is 7 fast days. So for the first stage, which is the Monday, Thursday, Monday, Anshe Mishamar Misanin Velo Mashlimin, Va'anshe Beis Av Loho Misanim Klal. So remember the terms Anshe Mishmar and Anshe Beis Av. What do those terms mean? The Kohanim who work in the Beis HaMikdash do not work 365 days a year. They were called up in the Second Temple times for active duty once every 24 weeks. You were called up for active duty, it was your week. And so the way that it worked is that when it was your week, it was called your mishmar, your shift. And then they divided that shift into 7 different groups because they didn't need every single Kohen to work on every single day. So they broke you up into 7 groups, and each group was called the Beis Av. It was called the head of that household. So they broke up that group of Kohanim, that shift of Kohanim, into families, into 7 different family groups. So just remember that the term Mishmar is the general shift, but you don't necessarily work on that day.
You work basically 2 days a year.
You're basically working like 2 days a year. And the Beis Av was when it was your day. Like let's say today's Thursday, so the Beis Av of Thursday would work, and the rest of the Mishmar would be available. They would be in the wings, like in case that particular Beis Av needed a little extra help, the Mishmar was available to help them. Okay, so that's the way it worked. So therefore, on the first set of fasting, the people of the Mishmar would fast because everyone's got to fast, but they didn't have to finish the fast because knowing that they may be needed to do the avoda, we don't want to weaken them too much. And if you're part of the Beis Av of today, which is Thursday, so you didn't fast at all because you need all of your strength because you got to do the avoda. Shalosh shnios anshe mishmar misanan umashlimim v'anshe Beis Av misanan v'lo mashlimim. Now, the second set of 3 fasts was becoming a little bit more serious. And so therefore, if you're a member of the Mishmar, you fasted the entire day. And if you're a member of the Beis Av of today's work, which you got to be actively working today, you would fast a portion of the day, and towards the afternoon you were allowed to break your fast. Sheva achronos, elu ve'elu misanan umashlim in divrei Rabbi Yoshua. And for the last set of fasting, which is a 7-day fast, then on every Monday and Thursday, both the Mishmar and the Beis Av had to fast the full day because that's when it's most desperate. That's according to Rabbi Yoshua. But Chachamim are more lenient, and they say no. Shalosh taniyos are rishonos, elu ve'elu lo hayu misanin klal. The first set of fasts, neither the Mishmar nor the Beis Av had to fast at all. Shalosh shnios anshe Mishmar misanin v'lo mashlimin v'anshe Beis Av lo hayu misanin klal. So if you were a member of the Mishmar, you fasted only a portion of the day and broke your fast in the afternoon. And if it was today, it was your day of active duty, you're part of the Beis Av, you didn't fast at all. Sheva achronos, anshe mishmar misanin umashlimin, va'anshe Beis Av misanin v'lo mashlimin. The last set of, which is the 7 days, then the members of the Mishmar would fast the whole day. And if today's your Beis Av day, so then you fasted only a portion of the day and broke it towards the end. Anshe Mishmar, now, the next part of this Mishnah is not talking about fast days. It's talking about the rules of when you're a member of a Mishmar. When you're a member of a Mishmar, even though it's not your Beis Av day, nevertheless, you may be called to assist. And therefore, you have to be ready at all times during the daytime to be in a state of readiness for service. And it's based on that Anshe Mishmar mutar lishtos yayin beleilos avalo bayomim. That if you're a member of the Mishmar, you're allowed to drink wine only at night, but not during the day. There's an assumption that since all of the avod is done during the day, and the only thing that's done at night is sort of like to help with the Eivar Mupidarim, to help with the limbs that sometimes fly off the Mizbeach, and you need a little bit of extra help with the Kohanim to put that up, the people of the Beis Av will take care of that. We don't need the rest of the Mishmar. So you guys want to make a l'chaim, have a Kiddush club in the back of the Beis HaMikdash, go right ahead. We're pretty sure we're not going to need you. But V'anshe Beis Av lo b'yom v'lo b'layla. But if you're a member of the Beis Av of that day, so then you can't make a l'chaim during the day or that following night because you're going to be needed to continue stoking the flames of the Mizbeach into the night. Anshe Mishmar v'anshe Maimud asurin milasaper u'milachabes u'v'chamishi mutar mibnei kavod HaShabbos. And furthermore, if you're a member of the Mishmar or the Ma'amad, now what is the Ma'amad? That's a new term that we haven't seen yet. As we'll see, there was always a delegation of Jews not doing the avoda. These were Kohanim, Leviim, and Yisraelim, representatives of the Jewish people in general. And there's a halacha that you always need representatives of the Jewish people to stand by the karbanos that are being offered on behalf of the Jewish people. Though that delegation, whatever number of Jews there are that are standing over the Mizbeach, they're known as the Anshe Ma'amad. So you had the Anshe Mishmar, which were the Kohanim who had a shift, and you had the Anshe Ma'amad, which were Kohanim, Leviim, and Yisraelim, and some say just Yisraelim, who were just in charge of watching over the carbon as it's being brought.
How many were there?
The Mishnah will hopefully clarify that for us, but just like you have 24 sectors of Israel, where the people where you choose your 24 shifts, so too there were 24 ma'amados in the same way. How many exactly there were probably was dependent upon the population at any given year. In any sort of like Congress or Parliament, something like that. Yeah. So the Gemara now says, the Mishnah now says that they were not allowed to get haircuts or do laundry during their shift, except on Thursday. On Thursday, they're allowed to get haircuts and laundry for Kavod Shabbos, the assumption is on Friday you're going to be too busy making Shabbos preparations, so you want to get a haircut and do your laundry on Thursday. So
They shouldn't laundry because it was a tircha?
well, we'll see why. We'll see why we don't allow them to do any of these things
Women do that anyways, right?
during their week. Chauvinist. Why? Who tells you that a woman does it? Right? Anyway, so we'll see. Kol ha'kosav b'Megillah Steines lo lemispad lefanav aser. I'm sorry. Kol ha'kosav b'Megillah Steines lo lemispad lefanav aser la'achar of mutter. So we know that there's this scroll called Megillah Steines. Now, normally you know that in the times of the Mishnah and before, nothing was really written, nothing was committed to writing. Everything was Torah Shabal Peh. The one exception is this thing called the Scroll of Taanis. Scroll of Taanis was a known scroll that existed. There were extant copies in the times of the writing of the Mishnah. There were days that were written down in this scroll that you're not allowed to fast and you're not allowed to eulogize because they're days of Simcha. And some of the days that are written in Megillah Steines, it says you cannot eulogize, which means that it's a really happy day. Not only can you not fast, but you cannot even offer a hesped on that day. There are other days which are happy, but not as happy, and therefore it only says that you cannot fast on that day. So if there's a day in Megillah Steines that says that you're not allowed to eulogize, then you can't do that either the day before or the day after, so sort of gives sort of a protective barrier to that day that it's sacrosanct. Rabbi Yossi Omer Lefanav Ula'achar of Aser. I'm sorry. Rabbi Yossi. I'm sorry. The Tanakama says Lefanav Aser La'achar of Mutter. The day before you cannot eulogize, but the day after that day you can eulogize. And Rabbi Yossi says Lefanav Ula'achar of Aser. Rabbi Yossi says both the day before and the day after it's Aser. Now, the lolihis anal, that if there's a day that's written in the scroll of Taanis that says simply not to fast, so then that's not as happy. So therefore, lefanav lachar of mutter, it's permitted to fast the day before and the day after. But Rabbi Yossi Omer lefanav aser lachar of mutter. Rabbi Yossi says it's aser to fast the day before, but you're allowed to fast the day after. So Rabbi Yossi is more liberal. Next, ein gozer in Taanis alam. What?
Well, Purim is one of those days.
Purim is one of the days that's mentioned in Megillah Steines.
We fast the day before.
Yes, you do. That's a very good question. I don't have an answer offhand to that question. I don't know why.
The Megillah says you fast on this day. And
No. But the Megillah doesn't say to fast on that day. I'm trying to think of a reason why that's.
Megillah Steines says it's okay to do.
I don't think Megillah Steines says to fast on Taanis, Esther. I don't remember the answer to that question. It's a good question, Zevi. I don't have an answer.
Taanis was not because of Tsar, it was because they went to war.
I understand, but if there's a rule that you're not supposed to fast the day before, how come we fast on Taanis Esther the day before Purim? Okay, something that we have to look into. I'm sure there's a very simple answer. Okay, Ein gozer in Taanis alat tzibor batchila b'chamishi shelo lahavkiya hasha'arim. Ela shalosh ta'anios harishonos sheni v'chamishi v'sheni v'shalosh shnios chamishi sheni v'chamishi. So the Mishnah tells us a very important rule. We know that the fast days are Mondays and Thursdays. But if, let's say, it's not raining and you want to immediately institute a fast, don't start the set of 3 on a Thursday. Start the set of 3 on a Monday. And the reason is because if all of a sudden you institute a fast, the first fast of the season being on a Thursday, you're going to artificially inflate grocery prices. Why is that? What is going to happen? Well, people normally make large purchases on Thursdays anyway for Shabbos. By instituting a fast, you ever go to Sobeys on a fast day, right? So you buy out the store because everyone's hungry. So you buy more on a fast day to break because I need this to break the fast. There's like a certain psychology that people have when they go shopping on it. They never go shopping on a fast day. So in any event, the fact is that there's going to be a run on groceries on the fast day that's on a Thursday. And then the merchants may not have heard that they instituted the fast, so they're just going to think there's a run on groceries. They'll up the prices, they'll inflate the prices, and that'll cause a break in the economy. So therefore, the rabbi said, we won't start fasting on Thursday, we'll start fasting on Mondays. Then by that following Thursday, the merchants will have heard, it's because of the fast, so they're not going to inflate the prices. Rabbi Yossi Omer, and so therefore the first fasts can be Monday, Thursday, Monday only, but the second fast would be Thursday, Monday, Thursday. Rabbi Yossi Omer Keshem Shein Harishonos B'Chamishi Kach Lo Shniyos V'Lo Achronos. Rabbi Yossi disagrees. He says just like the first set has to be Monday, Thursday, Monday, and you cannot start on a Thursday, so too the second and third sets have to always start on a Monday. They cannot start on a Thursday. Ein gozrin tainas al hatzibur b'rosh chadashim b'chanukah u'purim v'mischilu ein mafsikin divrei Rabbi Gamliel. And furthermore, you're not allowed to decree a set of fasts if you know that one of those Mondays or Thursdays will fall out on a Rosh Chodesh or a Purim or a Chanukah. However, if b'di'evid you instituted the fast and you only discovered after the fact that one of those days does coincide, then you still continue fasting. You don't nullify the fast. Amar Rabbi Meir, Afal Pish Amar Rabbi Gamliel Ein Mafsikin Moda Haya She'ein Mashlimin. But even though Rabbi Gamliel said his halacha, but he still acknowledges that if a fast day coincides with Rosh Chodesh or Purim or Chanukah, then you do fast, but you don't fast the whole day. You break it early. V'chein Tisha B'av shechalios be'erev Shabbos, and the same halacha applies that if Tisha B'av falls out on a Friday one year, which it never does, by the way, in our set calendar, but in the times of the Mishnah it could fall out on a Friday. If it does, you don't fast the whole day because you're not allowed to enter into Shabbos in a state of ravenous hunger. So therefore, you would fast the majority of the day, but sometime in the afternoon before Shabbos, you would break your fast.
We don't hold that way. Asar b'tevis we go all the way.
It's a special exception, Asara B'Teves. Special exception. It's the whole Torah about what makes Asara B'Teves special.
Taanis Esther also.
Taanis Esther also. Taanis Esther never falls out on a Friday. Yeah. No, but even when Purim falls out on a Shabbos, let's say, like on
it's Thursday. It's always Thursday.
Fast will always be on a Thursday. You always push it back one day. You normally never have a fast falling out on a Friday. The Gemara now says Seder Ta'anios Keitzad. So let's go back to the Mishnah. How do we fast? In other words, what is the order of the day? Motzianas Hateva Chule. We take out the Aron Kodesh out into the street of the city. So the Gemara says, Vafilu b'kamaisa. You mean that's true even in the first set of fasts? You go to that drastic measure of taking the Aron out into the street? Or a minhu, let's raise a contradiction. The Brisa says, Shalosh Tanios Rishonos Ushnios Nichnasin lebeis hakneses umispalin kederch shemispalin kol hashana kula. Uvesheva achronos motzianas hateva l'rechova shalir v'nosin efer gabi hateva uverosh hanasi uverosh av based in the cholecha v'echad nosin barosho. That the Brisa says not that way. The Brisa says that during the first two sets of three, people daven in the shul in the normal way. And it's only for the third set, which is the 7 fast days, that we take the Aron out into the street, we put ashes on it, and we put ashes on the leaders of the community, and then we put ashes on every person. So you see, and Reb Nassan Omer, Efer Makla, Hein Mevian, and Reb Nassan just clarifies that it's ash, it's not earth that we put on, because ash is even more abasing and more humbling than even dirt is. So the question is, how can the Mishnah tell me that it applies to all the fast days, when according to this Brisa, it only applies to the last set of 7. So Amar Rav Papa, Ki Tanan Nami Masnisin Asheva Achronos Tanan. You're right, says Rav Papa. When our Mishnah is talking about taking the Aron out into the street, it's only talking about the last set of 7. Next, Uverosh Hanasi, V'Hadar Tani Kol Echad Ve'echad Nosein Berosha. So first it says in our Mishnah that you put the ash on the head of the Nasi, of the president of the Jewish people, or the president of the community. And then you put it on everyone else's head. So that seems to be, you start with the most distinguished person by putting ash on his head first, and then you put ash on everyone else's head. But the Gemara says, but Eini, Vahatanya, but look at the following brisa that seems to say not that way. Rabbi Omer, B'gedola maschilin min hagadol, u'v'klola maschilin min hakatan. That when it comes to acts of distinction and honor, so then you always start with the greatest one, and you work your way down in descending order. But when you do things that are degrading and represent curse, you start with the smallest person and you work your way up to the highest person in ascending order. And l'cha'ora, this act of putting ash on people's heads is a sign of a curse. So l'cha'ora, you'd want to start with the lower people and work your way up to the Nasi, but it's not that way in the Mishnah. Now, where do we see this? B'gedola maschilin min hagadol, b'gedula rather, I should say, maschilin min hagadol. When it comes to greatness or acts of prestige, you always start with the greater people. Shenemar vayomer Moshe el Aharon ule el Azar ule Isamar. That normally, like this is just an example, where Moshe speaks first to Aaron, and then to Elazar, and then to Isamar. So you see, when he's giving a mitzvah, he goes in descending order, acts of prestige. Uviklola maschilim min hakatan. And how do you know that with things that are degrading and curseful, that we start with the lesser person? Because it says, Batchila niskal al nachash, v'achar kach niskal al chava, v'achar kach niskal al adam. That first, who got cursed first after the original sin? It was first the serpent, and then Chava, and then Adam. So you went up in ascending order, not in descending order. So l'chorah it should be the same thing over here. Start with the lower people and work your way up to the Nasi.
By Adam, though, it was in terms of initiation. In other words, who initiated the whole thing was the Nachash, then Chava, and then...
So the Gemara says that's not the reason. The reason that it was done in this order is because of the chashivus of each person. Of the distinction of each person. I mean, you're right. You could argue that that's not a good raya. You're asking a kasha. Your kasha is, where do you see a raya from there? Maybe that's not the criterion. Maybe the criterion is the order of who got it going. It's a good kasha. I hear the kasha.
It says it. The article says that.
So the Gemara says, Ha chashivusu lididu da'amri lahu atun chashivisu lemiboil on rachamei al kule alma. So the Gemara's answer, though, is that you're right. Normally, when you want to curse someone, you start with the lesser person and work your way up to the greater people. But over here, even though putting ash on someone's head is not complimentary, but in a sense it is, because when you put the ash on a person's head, you're saying, we're anointing you as taking responsibility for davening for Klal Yisrael. And by putting this humbling ash on your head, it'll put you in the frame of mind to be able to daven. So by putting it on you first, you Nasi, we're suggesting that your prayers are more efficacious than anyone else in the nation. That's why we want to start with you. So that is, in a sense, a sign of Gedula, a sign of greatness, a sign of prestige.
You could make a case for both sides.
You could. So the Gemara is making the case for the other side. Yeah. Okay. Next. V'chol echad ve'echad nosein barosha. Now, the Mishnah had also said that Nasi, that first the Nasi has ash placed on his head, and the base of has ash placed on his head, and then everyone follows in suit, and each person places ash on his own head. So Nasi va'av beis nami nishkalu inu v'ninu biroshayu ma'ishna deshakol ina shachrina umanachluhu. Why is it different for the Nasi and the Av Beis Din that someone else has to put ash on their head? Where we see by all of the other people, they put ash on their own heads. But by the Nasi and the Av Beis Din, other people have to put ash on their head. Why is that? So Amar Rabbi Abba Demin Kesari Eno Doma Mispayesh Me Atzbo LeMispayesh Me Acherim. Because the answer is that you can't compare a person who suffers humiliation by the hands of others to a person who suffers humiliation by his own hands. So for me to take a cup of water and pour it over my own head, that's very funny. I don't feel the sense of humiliation as much as if someone else were to take a cup of water, pour it over my head, then I would feel a greater sense of busha. Right? So therefore, by someone else placing it on the Nasi's head, it's even more humbling of an experience for him, and that'll inspire him to an even greater sense of prayer because of his great prestige. It's a much more abasing experience. For everyone else, though, the feeling is that since you're not so important to begin with, it doesn't really make that much of a difference whether you put the ash on your head or someone else does.
Is that the reason why a chassan, the father, usually puts the ash on his head as opposed to himself?
Probably that's the reason. I don't know whether this is... We'd have to look in the halacha to see whether there's a specific requirement for someone else to do it, but it would make sense because he's Doimel HaMelech on that day. It's a good point, Mendel.
Who would do it to this person?
What?
Who would put the ash on the Nasi?
Yeah, I don't know. A guy probably would have a lot of guts to do it, but
his wife.
So now the Gemara says, "V'heyecha manach lahu." Where on his head do you place the ash? And this is the same with the chassan, like Mendel was pointing out. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak b'makom tefillin. You put it on the place where he puts his tefillin, like right by his hairline. Shene'amar lasum la'avelai l'tzion laseislam pe'er tachas efer. It says that at a time of consolation, for those who are mourning for Zion, to give them pe'er, which is a code word for tefillin, which represents beauty or glory, in the stead of ash, which had been previously there. So the same thing is that when we're fasting and mourning, we put ash in the same place where our pe'er goes. Notice that the words pe'er and efer are the exact same letters, just jumbled. Efer is pe'er, just transpose the letters. So it shows you that depending upon, it's really all in Hashem's hands to determine whether we have Efer or Pe'er on our foreheads. But anyway, that's the point, is that you put the ash on the place of where there was previously pe'er to remind us that we can restore the glory and bring tefillin back to our heads if only we do tshuva. Have a wonderful day, everyone.